The M1907 SF may just be the assault class's best close quarter weapon, certainly amongst the assault rifles, and that's no surprise given its fire rate advantage over the rest of the category, but while being a close quarter focused weapon, it is not exactly a popular one in terms of how many times I see it used on the battlefield, and that's no surprise really when you consider how many times the weapon's been buffed and nerfed and changed in the life cycle of Battlefield 5, whereas weapons such as the Sturmgewehr 15 or STG have remained relatively unchanged. That doesn't mean, however, that the M1907 SF isn't a good or even great weapon to use, and as such, in today's weapon review, I wanted to cover the basics, the stats and properties of the weapon, the specializations available, and that I would recommend for it, how it compares to some of the competition out there, both within the assault class of weaponry and outside of it, specifically, of course, the SMGs, and lastly, of course, cover how to get the most out of this weapon when using it on the battlefield. But to start things off, as we always do, with the stats of the M1907 SF, the maximum damage here and minimum damage are the same you would find on any assault rifle pretty much out there, with a maximum damage of 25 and a minimum damage of 17, netting you of course a 4-shot kill in extreme close quarters, that is up until and including 10 meters in engagement distance. From that point onwards until 50 meters, you're looking at the usual 5 bullet to kill on your usual target without taking into account headshots of course, and from that point onwards, you're facing your minimum damage at 75 meters and a 6-shot kill from 50 meters outwards. In terms of your fire rate, it's record high for the assault rifles at 770 rounds per minute, relatively competitive even to the fastest firing SMGs in the game, but limited to a relatively small magazine at only 21 bullets in there, and a, given the close quarter focus of this weapon, relatively lengthy reload at 2.9 seconds for the short reload and 3.55 seconds for the long reload. In terms of recoil, things are relatively noticeable. There's quite a bit of recoil to this weapon, but not as much as you would think given its fire rate and damage output that it has available to it, with vertical recoil on a per shot basis of 0.82 and horizontal recoil to the left and right, of course evenly spread, at 0.205. The usual spread values apply to the M1907 SF as you would expect on pretty much all assault rifles out there: 0.1 while aiming down sight and standing still, 0.3 while aiming down sight and moving, and the usual relatively poor accuracy while hip firing with a minimum amount of spread at 3 while hip firing, standing and moving simultaneously. But stats to one side, let's talk about these specializations, which have of course been changed over the course of Battlefield 5's life cycle. This used to be a 16 magazine capped weapon with a magazine upgrade and also upgrades to the horizontal recoil available to this weapon. All that is no more. Instead now, for your first choice, you can either go for slings and swivels, giving you 15% faster weapon switching, or quick aim, giving you 33% faster ADS times. Then if you go down the left hand side, you're going to be going for a hipfire build with enhanced grip, giving you more accurate hipfire, and the polished action giving you better sustained accuracy while hipfiring. The right hand side then focuses on a vertical recoil reduction of about 20% with the recoil buffer specialization, and the custom stock gives you better accuracy while moving. Then your last choice is either between the bayonet, if you're looking for some Battlefield 1 vibes, or you can go for the lightened stock, giving you 60% faster moving while aiming down sight. Now, in terms of what I would recommend, this is a close quarter focused weapon that is likely going to be competing frequently, if not constantly, with SMGs and shotguns, two classes of weaponry which excel at hip firing far beyond any engagement distance that an assault rifle could even hope to try and accurately hip fire kill somebody. Thus, this specialization tree needs to somewhat compensate for the weaknesses of this weapon, and because the right hand side doesn't really do much to actually improve the strengths of this weapon, for me it's definitely going to be a quick aim followed by enhanced grip, polished action for that better hipfire, and then the lightened stock because I'm not a big fan of the bayonet. So before we get into how all these specializations lead to a weapon that is excellent at a certain kind of playstyle and certain task, let's talk a little bit about how it compares to some of the competition out there, namely the Sturmgewehr 15 and the Suomi. The Sturmgewehr 15 being its closest competitor in the assault class of weaponry, thanks to the Sturmgewehr 15 having the second highest fire rate in the assault class, and the Suomi being essentially its twin brother over in the SMG class of weaponry. So the Sturmgewehr 15 in many ways, surprisingly actually, is similar to the M1907 SF. They both, if upgraded down what I think to be their ideal upgrade paths, have relatively similar horizontal recoil, with the Sturmgewehr 15 having a slight recoil advantage in terms of the vertical recoil, and they both focus on close to medium range engagements. Now, the big differences are of course the magazine size and fire rates, giving the M1907 an advantage on a 1 or maybe 2 target basis, but a disadvantage at more medium ranges or on on multi-target bases because of its lower magazine size. So the M1907 is a more close quarter and lower target count focused version of the Sturmgewehr 1.5 if you want to see it in a comparative sense. The Suomi, on the other hand, is a lot more comparable, I think, in many ways to the M1907 SF. They share the same fire rate, the same damage output in close quarters, and a number of other qualities, such as, for example, their vertical recoil. But whereas the M1907 SF doesn't have the option for a 50-round magazine or even a fire rate increase, and it most certainly doesn't have the excellent hipfire of all the SMGs, not even if it's equipped with all the hipfire upgrades, it does have a better damage model and a lot less horizontal recoil, making it a lot better at medium ranges, where weapons like the Suomi, the Tommy gun, or any of the other close quarter focused SMGs truly fail to remain competitive or even relevant in certain situations, depending on the target, depending on the engagement distance. So the M1907 is a far more flexible but lower target count and harder to use version of the Suomi if you, once more, see it in comparative senses, which is where we start to get into where this weapon fits in and how you get the most out of it when using it on the battlefield. I think the M1907 SF is probably the trickiest assault rifle currently in the game to use, not only because the low amount of bullets available in its magazine, paired with an extraordinarily high fire rate, meaning that you chew through those in no time, but also because of how you have to use this weapon, how it behaves, the recoil, and given that this weapon is not the easiest to control out there. If we look at the close quarter situation, unlike some of the SMGs, you can't hip fire, pray and spray. Despite the hip fire upgrades, which will serve you well in close quarters, at close medium ranges where most SMG users will just hold down mouse button 1 with a 50-round Tommy gun and just wait for their enemy to die, you can't do this with this weapon. Not only because you do not have the hipfire accuracy, but you do not have the bullets available in your magazine to do so either. So you end up having to play surprisingly accuracy reliant for a close quarter focused weapon. A difficult task if you're an average player and don't have godlike aim. That's the first part to this weapon. The second part to this weapon is where it starts to compete at those more medium ranges, where weapons such as the Sturmgewehr 1.5 are excellent, even most of the semi-automatics, and of course the good old STG. Here, this weapon can actually very much compete, but only once more with high amounts of accuracy, not missing many shots, and with excellent burst fire rhythms. If you burst this weapon, you'll find it to be extraordinarily accurate, almost criminally accurate at medium engagement ranges. It's never going to be a long range weapon, it's never going to compete with an STG at 75 meters, but it is going to tear the STG a new one in close quarters and give it a run for its money, at least some decent competition at medium range, which makes the M1907 a far more aggressive weapon, but a far more difficult weapon to use than most of the assault rifles out there. So it's a challenge that many players, in my opinion, won't want to or won't need to take on. It's a little bit of a high skill weapon actually in the way it's currently built, but for those looking for a challenge and those who enjoy weapons capable of engaging not only close quarter but medium range targets, this is actually a pretty damn good choice, not to forget that the assault class has some of the most attractive gadgets in the game in form of dynamite, Panzerfaust, and of course Piats to deal with vehicles. So on maps such as Devastation, and specifically Devastation, but also in certain scenarios Rotterdam, a lot of the smaller game modes such as Squad Conquest or Frontlines, TDM or Domination, this is one of your top picks you can actually go for, especially amongst the assault class of weaponry, but I'd argue amongst all of the class of weaponry. It's especially effective when used together with a squad because dealing with close quarter combat without being a medic means constantly taking damage and not being able to heal, which is a difficult situation to be in, and that's why playing in a squad, on comms preferably with a medic, consistently throwing you health patches as I had for most of the footage in today's video, it's a lot easier, it becomes a lot more doable. But even without that, the M1907, if you are a careful player, you plan engaging your targets carefully, you don't just take every shot you can see, is a very effective, while very difficult to use, assault rifle for the assault class in Battlefield 5. And that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on that weapon. I'm going to be using it some more of the coming weeks, try to perfect my bursting patterns and try to get even better at extending the engagement distance of this weapon. Also practice my aim with it, but I'd love to know what you think about the weapon and if you've used it extensively recently, given how many changes and iterations we've seen of this weapon through the nerfing and buffing that DICE has done to it. So leave that, as well as of course your usual feedback and suggestions down below in the comments, or hit me up with them on Twitter. If you found this video interesting, helpful, or entertaining, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 5 video.